Before I get talking about these grapevines, and please forgive all the weeds in here, and I may or may not get them out of here. Grapevines do not like weeds growing under them. They just don't. I couldn't tell you the reason, because what I'm going to tell you next would show that these weeds shouldn't affect this plant. The ground I'm standing on and the ground that grapevine is planted in, when we hooked on the sewer line, because the county made everybody hook onto the sewer line years ago, this is 16 feet of topsoil before it hits sand. 16 feet of topsoil. This is one of the counties with some of the greatest topsoil in the state of Virginia. When you plant a grapevine, the roots will go straight down until they hit hard pan. That's not sand. Most soil is sitting there as loose soil that you can grow things in, trees, everything can grow in. The hard pan is under that soil, and it's generally hard and roots can't penetrate it. If the sand at 16 feet here was hard pan, that root will go to 16 feet before it does anything else. Then it will go out left and right at the 16-foot mark. So sometimes in a drought you see your grapes don't really suffer. It's because their roots are that far down in the ground. And when you have a drought and high temperatures, basically maybe only the first 6, 8, 10 inches of the soil is actually dried out. Now if you live and have grapes where you only have a foot of topsoil or less, the roots are close to the surface. And if you say sprayed Roundup on this, it will kill those roots. I wouldn't spray Roundup under a grapevine for any reason, because once the roots here get to 16 feet, the roots will come out on that whole root from the surface down. But a lot of them will be at the 16 feet mark. And I just wanted you to understand how these roots work. If you have shallow soil, the roots go out left and right, that way and this way. And if you put anything on it that's a chemical, it could kill them. So people, when you look it up, you'll see quite often that it says you don't need to fertilize grapevines, because the roots are so far down, the fertilizer isn't going to get there. And they've got so much nutrients in all that soil here at 16 feet deep that they don't need any additional. Just wanted to blow 3 minutes to let you know how the root structure works on grapes. After watching a 3-minute video I did a little bit ago about the roots, I needed to explain it a little bit better, because I don't think I explained it as well as I did. This root will go down 16 feet here at least. Some grapevines will go, grapevines can go even deeper than that. It will probably enter into the sand. If it was hard pan, it would stop and go laterally. But when this plant gets about 4 or 5 years old and you're really starting to get a lot of grapes off of it, the roots will be, most of the roots that support this grapevine will be between like 1 and 5 or 6 feet under the soil. And so fertilizer could get to them, and some people fertilize a lot. It's a science. They measure boron, zinc, magnesium, everything in the soil. But you're not trying to grow grapevines, quality grapes. You try to get close to it, and you're not trying to make wine or anything from it. So grapes don't really like a lot of nitrogen. Some people will say when you plant new grapes, you should put a certain amount of weight. It's like less than a pound around the plant. You would always do it away from the trunk, at least a foot, 15 inches, and spread it around in a big circle. But these roots, when they mature, when this gets 4, 5 years old, these roots could be all the way over there to those daffodils. They could be all the way back over here. So if you need to fertilize them, and I don't particularly need to fertilize them because I have so much high quality soil here, but at the river cottage I've got grapes that are shallow rooted because I don't have much topsoil down there. Now I would have to fertilize those, You try to stay away from the nitrogen. They do make special things to put on them instead of just fertilizer, like 10-10-10. You wouldn't want to use 10-10-10 because it's the first 10 is nitrogen, and they don't really like a lot of nitrogen. They would like, a new planting would like some a week or so after you put it in the ground, and then after that you might do it when they break out and start looking like this, or start to look a little bit like a cane. That's actually called a shoot, and then when it gets a little longer and it starts to get a little covering on it, it's called a cane. And after that, you don't want to fertilize them anymore. You do not want to, this is the middle of April. You don't want to fertilize these things more than in 2 or 3 weeks from now. After that, you don't do it anymore. If you put fertilizer on here that makes vegetation growth, you'll get too many leaves that will shield the grapes and prevent them from ripening because the sun doesn't get to them. Plus, you've got all that energy growing in leaves that you don't need. And all of those leaves that grow because you put fertilizer on them, say in late May and June, will weaken the plant, and they will be weaker shoots and canes, and you won't get any benefit out of it, and they can die back in colder weather because they're not strong. They haven't been alive long enough. I know it's complicated. If you think this is bad, there's so much information on grapes, it would drive you crazy, but we're just trying to grow a few clusters to have in our house to eat.